Isaac Tiemens, that's the second of the three, says, is it fair to say that progressivism is the religion from which the Establishment Clause was supposed to protect us? They didn't have progressivism back when they wrote the Constitution. There really hadn't been Marxism. If there had been, I think there probably would have been. I don't think you would have changed any of the. Again, I keep saying this about the Constitution. The amazing thing about the Constitution is not that it's flawed, it's just that it's not enforced. It is, in fact, a virtually perfect document in terms of protecting us from all kinds of horrors, economic and political and loss of liberties and all of this. We just don't obey it. We don't enforce it. I do think it's interesting that all of these people who are constantly striving to keep religion out of the military and keep religion out of the public sphere and all this other stuff, the definition really of, I mean, people tend to assume religion means sort of a theocratic viewpoint, a sort of a vision of some sort of theology. But actually, I think a much better definition of a religion is a worldview. It's a combination of philosophy, morality, and values that basically determines your moral code and your moral bearings and your actions. And if you take that definition of religion, which I think is a much better religion than just belief in God, then this kind of secularism is a religion too. And they are imposing this religion upon other people by claiming that they're trying to get religion out of government and out of society. I think really the best answer I can give you here, Isaac, is that you'll often hear progressives talk about the wall between church and state, separation of church and state. It's in the Constitution, but it's not in the Constitution. It was an offhand comment that Thomas Jefferson made in a letter to somebody else. Thomas Jefferson had Bible sessions and religious services in these Congress. I think Jefferson actually had money allocated from the federal government to pay for Bibles. You can certainly make the case that Jefferson was one of the least theocratic of the founders, but Jefferson understood that the purpose of the First Amendment is not to keep religion out of the government. The problem was to keep the government out of religion. And that's the one thing that no one understands. That's really what it's about. The First Amendment protections for religion are not to keep religion out of the government. It's to keep the government out of religion. The idea that you would have to keep religion out of the government absolutely would have been unimaginable to the founders. Now, you don't have to be religious. You don't have to believe in Christianity or God or any of that stuff. But you do have to understand that there is this idea that you can divorce the government from the Judeo-Christian values that are the common. See, the thing about this is where I've kind of come to, because I started thinking about things instead of just taking things for granted. You can be an absolute militant atheist in America today, and that's fine. But what you can't really deny is that even the idea of atheism and the separation of religion is in fact descended from the Judeo-Christian values that make up this society. So you don't have to believe in Christianity or Judaism or both or either. Don't have to identify with either of those groups, but the Judeo-Christian ethic is built into the culture from which you come, and to pretend that it's not there is silly. And to try and ban it is nuts. It's just nuts. So this is not a society based on Buddhist values. It's not a society based on Muslim values. It's not a society based on animist values or Confucian values or anything else. It is based on fundamentally Christian values, but also Judeo values, Jewish values. The fundamental difference in the broadest possible strokes is that from Judaism we have the understanding that the law is the law, and that there is basically one law for all people, that there is a single source of morality and righteousness, and that things like there are certain absolute truths that are true. And from Christianity we gain the idea that there's in fact an internal governance not just external law, but an internal governance, a virtue, a sense of conscience, a sense of Holy Spirit, if you like. But there is an internal governance on our behavior. And since we govern ourselves internally, we don't need a large external government, a large external state watching everything we do and telling us what to do. If you look at societies based on Muslim values, Sharia-based societies, there is no sense of internal governance. That's why women have to wear sacks over their heads, and that's why you can't have alcohol or gambling or anything. Can't hold hands, can't listen to music, because you can't be trusted, because you have no internal governance. That's why Muslim societies look different than Christian societies like America. Again, that doesn't mean that you have to be a Christian to live in America. It doesn't mean you have to buy Christianity. It doesn't mean you can't promote atheism or materialism or any of that other stuff. But to deny that those values are not the fundamental basis for why you're even an atheist is kind of silly. If you were born into a Muslim society, Mr. Dawkins, let's say, you wouldn't be an atheist. You wouldn't be. The fact that you are when I say able, I don't mean politically able. I don't mean in terms of like you're free to be an atheist without political consequences. But the fact you're intellectually able to be an atheist or a materialist or whatever is a result of this internal governance and this sense of internal moderation and so on that is fundamentally Christian and Judeo-Christian in content. You don't get to be an atheist much in an extremely Muslim society. And in a Buddhist society, the entire idea of atheism as we understand it simply doesn't exist because there's no monotheism. You can't really be an atheist if there's no monotheism. And if you're an animist, obviously you can't be an atheist because the definition of being an animist is you believe there are gods in everything, gods of the river, gods of the trees, and so on. So, I don't know. Back to the essence of the question, Isaac, progressivism is a religion. It is a series of morals, values, and philosophy that determine your behavior based on a moral code. It is a religion. It's a worldview. It's a means of determining how you're going to act and behave and what you're going to do. And so once you understand that progressivism and secularism is a religion as well, it should be afforded the same rights and protections as other religions and should have no more power. It doesn't, here's what I'm trying to say. It doesn't get to put progressivism doesn't get to put itself in a privileged position as if everything else is a religion except for this, which is pure reason and pure non-belief. It's a belief system, and it should be subject to the same things. So you don't get to have one religion push another religion out of the public square, especially the religion that everything, including atheism, was founded on. So this business of closing down, Christmas displays in town squares and stuff, and having one angry person basically pull down, this is what we were talking about earlier with the situation in Texas. If one atheist can cause a town that's had what's the word I'm looking for? A Christmas display with a manger and everything. If one angry atheist can have that pulled down after it's been there for 100 years, do we really want to live that way? Do we really want to live in a world where one angry person can cause everyone else to give up everything that they've held as tradition and beliefs and so on? How does that harm that person, by the way? Seriously. How does it harm that person? If somebody says to me, L'chaim, how does that harm me? I've been to a couple of Jewish weddings for friends of mine, and I go in there and they give me a yarmulke, and it's got a little embroidered thing on it, and it's kind of almost like a souvenir. And I wear it with pride. Am I going to be offended that I've come to a wedding? I didn't come here to practice religious services and make me wear this yarmulke. I'm not Jewish. It's like, who gets upset about these things? Who gets upset about this stuff? Honestly, what kind of person do you have to be? If somebody says Merry Christmas, if you take that as offense, I mean, it's just nativity things. What do you say? I mean, back to what we were talking about at the beginning. This is where our country's going. All of the ability to be free in speech and free in thought, and just to have fun and not be constantly under assault from these bitter, small-minded weenies who have to just constantly not only control things, but this offends me. Well, tough. I find this offensive. Tough. Somebody might take that the wrong way. Well, okay, so maybe they do take it the wrong way. They're probably not going to, but in fact, they're almost certainly. In fact, they're certainly not going to. But let's say they did. So what? That's their problem. They're the ones who are taking these actions. It's just honest. Is it just me? Is it just you? Just get the feeling that this whole thing is just turning into such a just funless, so dour and petty and mean and everything is just so, I don't know. It's like the Periwinkle Garden Club is in charge of everything. You can't say this. You can't do this. This is wrong. I find that offensive. This is, take that down. That bothers me. I don't care if it bothers you. Who cares if it bothers you? A lot of things you do bother me. I just tune it out. I don't even get a chance to turn it off because it's everywhere. I just tune it out. I don't see it. God, oh man, that's really bad news. Bad news.